Well, it's been good. So this is the first time that we've actually attended the World Travel Market in the new structure. So the minister is not here, which is a reflection of the change that Bermuda is taking as to how we manage tourism going forward. So our legislation has been passed, and we are now moving in transition towards being a full tourism authority with much more private sector involvement, some government involvement because it has to exist, but a new way of managing going forward. It's an exciting time.
I will talk a little bit about the change in a while. Let's talk about the experience here, first of all, at World Travel Markets. It's been busy for you, hasn't it?
It's been very busy for us, thank you. New people. For me, as a hotelier, I've known some of them before, but I think they're coming out of curiosity and out of an interest in what Bermuda is doing. We had a wonderful dinner last night where we entertained our partners, airlines, media, tour operators, terrific turnout, and it gave me an opportunity to explain how the whole process is working and some of the initiatives that we're undertaking.
Yeah, I've been talking to a few people who are telling me that this year they're sensing more of a buzz here at World Travel Markets. Is this your sense?
I think so. I have to be honest with you. I haven't been for a couple of years, so it's a little difficult for me to say, but I think there's a sense of, what's the word, optimism? There's a sense that at least in the UK and Europe side of things, the confidence, consumer confidence is rebounding. Bermuda is up 15% out of the UK for this year over last year, and actually the forward projections are even better for 2014. So it's a good feeling here, you're right. A buzz is the right word.
What's your projected outcome for WTM? When you left Bermuda, this is what I want to achieve.
Partnerships. Standing up, strengthening relationships, building new ones, and I think the new entity that we've formed is a perfect opportunity and a need for Bermuda right now to put in place business partnerships, not just emotional partnerships, but relationships that actually pay for both sides. So that, and that's the definition of a good deal, both people have to win. So that is my major initiative, if you want to call it that. And when I spoke at our function last night, it had a good reception. People said, we feel Bermuda is changing and we feel Bermuda is upgrading itself, and that we look forward to these partnerships.
Let's talk now about this new Bermuda Tourism.
Right.
So you're moving into a tourist board. The legislation has been passed, as you've just said. How is it going to function differently from what obtained up until now?
So it's moving to an authority from an existing board, so that there will be a private sector board appointed. The minister does that, and then he actually gets out of the way. He'll have oversight for tourism, he'll speak in Parliament, he'll be an advocate for tourism in the cabinet. But everything else to do with the management of tourism, the operation, the sales and marketing, we're putting together a new product and experience division. We're putting together an investment division because we want hotel investment to come in. We want to actually go out and look for it and be able to create a one-stop shop, red carpet approach for hotel investors coming to Bermuda. So I think that it's really a greater private sector involvement, and bluntly speaking, it eliminates political interference. Governments come, governments go, ministers change. We've had 7 tourism ministers in the last 15 years. And it's not a criticism of any one of them. Each one of them brings to the table a different level of experience, but they bring change. And sometimes change and fluidity gets altered. And so this government and this minister, in my view, is being very bold and courageous by allowing us to do that.
So, am I hearing that what you're doing here is different from what every other tourism authority does? You're taking on product development as well, did you say that? Yeah.
We are, absolutely. And I think it is different, but although, as I've had a few phone calls from other Caribbean countries that want to see the legislation to see how it works, I've been told it's leading legislation, but as destinations become more competitive, it won't be leading for very long. Somebody will look at us, just as we did others, and we looked for what are the benefits and the strengths from other jurisdictions, what are the weaknesses, and then we put a Bermuda wrapper around it and created it uniquely for Bermuda. But I believe it is a first-time approach to the depth that we're taking it to get people involved.
So, technically you do have a Ministry of Tourism because there's a minister.
Right.
But functionally and every other means, there, for all intents and purposes, is no Ministry of Tourism from what I'm hearing.
The only thing that the Ministry of Tourism will do from now on is the regulatory side. So hotel inspections, licensing, which really should stay with government. Everything from health to sanitation to liquor licensing to safety security issues. belong in government, so a little unit of 3 or 4 will stay behind, but the rest of it is completely gone. Completely gone, and the minister appoints the first board, and after that, that's it. The board appoints itself, it rolls over every 4 years, and the minister chooses a chairman. So that's the only involvement of the minister on a go-forward basis, is out of a board that's put together by the board, the minister picks a chairman. Now, clearly, I will have his ear, he'll have my ear, he'll need to speak on tourism, he'll need to be an advocate for tourism. He'll need to be a champion for tourism. So this is not about getting rid of the minister or the government. This is about giving a new entity an opportunity to manage itself, but the shareholder at the end of the day is really the minister, and he is the shareholder for the people of Bermuda. That's the way we look at it.
And he gives you the budget, does he?
Well, it's interesting. So we're going to be partially funded from the government in the first year or two, because it's a new organization, you can't expect to do anything but. And then we'll be partially funded by a separate tax, a tourism authority tax on hotel occupancy. But my goal is to self-fund within 2 years. We want to be completely out of government, and the Minister of Finance absolutely is on board with that. He'd love not to fund tourism anymore. So the goal is self-funding. And so we're looking at ways, creative ways to be able to raise funding. For example, the entity will be able to borrow money, lend money, invest, and I see the day when the authority actually will be an asset holder of certain entities in Bermuda. There could be golf courses, I don't think hotels, transportation product, and one of the things that we're going to try to do is to stand up young product suppliers in Bermuda with tourism ideas that may not have the capital. They have some of their own capital, they might have bank capital, and then we want to be able to be the entity that gets them to the next level and then gets out of the way. And that's why the borrow, lend, and invest side of it. Unique, I think.
You've mentioned the reduction, if not the entire removal of political interference as one of the pluses. What are some of the other key advantages of going that way that you can pick here?
Well, I think the reduction is probably the right word, because I think any government for a piece of the economy of tourism, as it is in Bermuda and the Caribbean, still has to be involved. So it's not about the elimination, but it's the elimination of the constant changes and the need to have a steady state as regards tourism, so that as governments come and go and ministers come and go, agencies don't change, national tourism plans don't change. So that I see as the benefit. I think the overall benefit, though, is a greater involvement by the private sector. Private sectors by nature don't trust governments. It's not about Bermuda government, but I think they feel that if they have more of a say and government is not as much in the way, then they'll be more invested.
But doesn't this come with a risk as well? Because private sector by nature will dump anything very quickly that doesn't make as much money.
It comes with a huge risk. So the government is taking a risk by essentially outsourcing it. The private sector, it's our job as the board, the new board, which will, by the way, be at a much higher level than the previous board of tourism, which was an advisory board. This will be a board not necessarily by the way of tourism experts. These are going to be people from a cross-section of Bermuda business, international tourism, a number of players that will sit there, will rotate, and these in essence will be key people, leaders in the community that will be recognized. And so that if person A or B serves on that board, that's going to be powerful enough to send a message to the community that that's a real player. That's somebody that is going to help to create this industry. So I'm excited about it. I mean, I think everybody, apprehensive is probably the word, but what we did before didn't work. And we're in struggle like everybody else in tourism these days. So my argument is give this a chance. And it's a new opportunity. We researched it, we benchmarked it, we produced, I think, a very good piece of legislation, and now it's up to our job, it's up to us, I should say, to implement.
Mention an interesting word here, outsourced.
Outsource.
So the government has outsourced tourism.
In essence, yes, it has, right, but carefully. And there's legislation involved, so they're protected through the legislation. And, you know, at the end of the day, if this doesn't work, a government can always repeal the legislation. So I was asked this the other day, what happens if the government changes and the next government comes in and says, well, we don't like that model? My answer to that is twofold. One is we're going to do a great job, so it'll be very difficult for them to undo it. And the second is if we don't, that they have to think carefully before they undo a process that's been involving more people and take it back inside government. And I think any government today should think carefully. And I was a former politician, former tourism minister, so I've been there. I know exactly what the issues are. So maybe that's why they asked me to do this. I don't know.